Really nice to see all of you here. I think people are still a little dispersed, but let me get started. I think we are living in a really, really great time and a great world, and the world is just changing around us extremely fast. So what I want to do is spend a few minutes today talking a little bit about how this world is going to change. So let me show you a couple of stats. In 1990, 1 million people worldwide owned a mobile phone. Today, there are about 6 billion in circulation. There are over 1,100 photos uploaded to Instagram every second. No human has won a chess tournament against a high-spec computer since 2005. It's undefeatable. If you had bought this phone back in 1991, it would have cost you $3.5 million. Radio Shack is a very famous American company. I don't know if you know what it is in Ukraine or not, but they sell electronic equipment, and everything that you see in 1991 on this ad is available right now in a single smartphone. If you see it closely, you'll see a camcorder, you'll see a voice recorder, you'll see a computer. All of this stuff is today available right in your smartphones. There is 22,000 GB of internet traffic every second. In 1999, it took Google 1 month to crawl and build an index of about 50 million pages. In 2012, the same thing is done in less than 1 minute. Computing power is just growing. I'm Tarun, I'm here to talk to you about digital enterprise management. If you look at what's happening around us, one thing is that our lives are changing significantly. Our lives, like you and me personally. The way we buy things, the way we consume services, the way we make decisions, our experience of computing at home is perhaps better than your experience of computing in your office. There used to be a time when it was exactly the opposite. When you went to work, you found that the computing infrastructure, the internet was faster there, your computers were better there. But not true anymore. At work, maybe you have a Dell laptop with Windows, but maybe at home, you have a very fast MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or something like that. Maybe at work, you get 2 Mbps of internet speed, but at home, maybe you get 50 Mbps of internet speed. If you take a look at the apps that you use in the corporate, they might still be very old from a user experience and user interface perspective. But when you look at the consumer apps like Uber, I don't know, Uber is not here, is it? Is Uber here yet? Is that anything like Uber? I think BlaBlaCar is here. So you've got some. So if you start to look at the user experiences of some of these new apps, you find that they're very easy to use, very easy to consume services from it, but not your corporate apps. Everything around us, the way we make our buying decisions. For that matter, I think some people, whether they're buying a house or they're buying a ballpoint pen, they always put it on Facebook to say, what do you think of this ballpoint pen? Should I buy it? And then based on people's comments, they end up making a buying decision. The way we are living our lives today, completely different from the way we even lived it 5 years back. I'm going to talk a little bit about a concept that you may or may not have heard. This is very popular in FMCG companies and retailers. There's a term called MOT, or Moment of Truth. And there were 2 moments of truth that Procter & Gamble made very famous. The first moment of truth is when you have had enough of a stimulus to go into a store to buy a product. So you saw an ad, somebody highly recommended that there is a product that you should use, and you walk into the store with the intent to buy that product. That was called FMOT, first moment of truth. The second moment of truth was when you went home, you unpacked the product that you bought and started using the service. And what was that experience of using that product or that service was the second moment of truth. So whether you lived up to the expectations of the product based on its marketing or not. All the companies that consistently build strong brands won both these moments of truth. They were always winning the first moment of truth, and they were always winning the second moment of truth. But now, something else is happening. There is a new moment of truth called ZMOT, or zero moment of truth. Because by the time you reach the store or make a decision whether you're going to buy a product or you're not going to buy a product, you've already made up your mind. You've already made that decision by doing enough of your research on the internet. Maybe you've asked a few friends on your social networks, and you've already decided what is that product. You don't even have to go into the store anymore once you've made the decision, because your store is most likely an online e-commerce site from where you make the decision. And then, when you like the product or you don't like the product, the second moment of truth is also right there, because when you have a good experience with the product, you may tweet about it or you may put it up on Facebook or something like that. If you don't, on the other hand, you will definitely tweet or put it up on Facebook. And for the first time in history, the word of mouth is a digitally archived medium, which means that once somebody says something about you or your product, it remains on the internet forever. That comment just never ever goes away. And that is both a risk but also an opportunity for companies. One of the companies that I talk about quite a bit is Amazon, and Jeff Bezos said this. He said, your brand is what people talk about you when you're not in the room. Every single brand is trying to win zero moment of truth, first moment of truth, second moment of truth. They're trying to make sure that people have a positive experience, but Amazon stands out. And I'll give you an example. I live in India. I lived in the US for many years. I lived in the US for 15 years. And I like video streaming services. So we use Netflix. I use Hulu. I also use Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is Amazon's video and music streaming service. I had rented a movie from Amazon, and I was in HD, and I was watching the movie, and somewhere in the middle, the quality of the movie went bad. So instead of HD, it started to stream in SD for maybe a few seconds. I didn't even realize it that much, and the movie just continued. And anything could have happened. It could have been my own network, it could have been anything, so I didn't even pay attention to it. But by the time my movie was over, I had an email from Amazon.com saying, we noticed that you had a poor movie watching experience, and there was a technical glitch, and we would like to refund your money back, and we want to give you 5 movies free. Because of that glitch. Now you can imagine that is going beyond expectation. If the same thing happened on Netflix or on Hulu, I don't think they would have done that. I think if I had done that with Apple, I don't think they would have refunded my money proactively. I think if I called customer service and complained, maybe they would. But this kind of an experience, which is above and beyond, makes a company stand out. And I am right now being the biggest brand ambassador for Amazon.com by just talking about the story and telling you how the companies have an opportunity to do far better. And some of them take it and some of them don't. The ones that do are the ones that become humongous brands. Businesses want to create brand loyalty, and they can. So while the digitally archived medium can be a scary thing for people, it can also be a very positive thing for people to reinforce your brand. The leaderboards, the companies that today are at the top of the game, on top of the leaderboard, everything is about to change for those guys. Jeffrey Immelt, the CEO of GE, made a very profound statement. And I think Brian Borak just said that right before I came on board. He said, today you go to bed as the CEO of a manufacturing unit, but tomorrow you wake up as the CEO of a software and data analytics company. Every single company in the world is going to be a software company. Today, no matter what size of a project it is, or what the project is, whether you're building a port, or you're building an airport, or you're building a hotel, 40% of the total spend, capital expenses, 40% is spent on technology today, 40%. And a lot of it is software. I'll give you another great example of how software is changing everything. Do you know of a car called Tesla? You know of a car called Tesla? It's a beautiful car. Friends of mine own it, and one of my friends was telling me this amazing stories. And he said he's driving his Tesla, and he heard a knocking sound in the car. There was a knocking sound. and he went up in the Tesla, in the dashboard is like a big iPad, and you can just look up, you're always connected. So you look up, what is that knocking sound about? And Tesla said this is a known bug, we know about it, and we're going to fix it. It's different now, and it's going to be much more different. Today, a lot of what we talk about is things like watches or mobile phones. But when Internet of Things happen, every single thing is going to change for us. We don't even know what devices are going to come into play in our house, in our lives, in our businesses. But things are going to keep changing. Great opportunity. It's a great story from a company called Sanofi. Sanofi is a leader in diabetes care, and they used to make, and they still do, they make blood testing equipment for doctors. Recently, they announced this small little appliance that fits on your iPhone, and you can take a blood sample and it stores all your data on the cloud. It also has alarms set for if your blood sugar is too high or too low, it calls the doctor, and the doctor can call you and say, hey, there is a, you need to take this medication, or you need to come into a hospital, or whatever that might be. Now, for Sanofi, when their IT infrastructure managed 10,000 doctors, let's say there were 10,000 doctors they were servicing, all of a sudden their IT infrastructure does not have 10,000 end customers anymore, but over 1 million, simply because your end customer is no longer the doctor, but the actual person who has diabetes. And that kind of scale requirements come in the new enterprise. So when you're talking about IT of the old or IT of the new, IT of the new has to be one that has massive data, massive scale. You saw some of the stats I talked about, how much internet traffic is flowing. The same kind of data is being stored in enterprises right now. Big data is critical, it's going to be big. 3 very popular companies here. YouTube, the largest media company that owns no media. Uber, the largest taxi service that owns no taxi. Airbnb, the largest accommodation company that owns no rooms. Airbnb now has 900,000 rooms in their inventory. Hilton, which is a 93-year-old company, has 600,000. The new technology startups, these are called full stack startups. They bypass completely the way a company evolves. So most of the times when you start businesses, you start with something very simple, like maybe an email, and then you move to some CRM systems, then you move to some ERP system. There's a whole stack of how a company improves its IT stacks. These companies start with a full stack first, and they really give a run for the money to existing companies. The other thing that is very different about it is that most of these startups come in with a very small niche offering, and they go after large enterprises. If you can imagine, if you can just imagine for a second, an elephant, which is the big company, is being attacked by a swarm of bees. Lots and lots of bees. How is the elephant going to save itself? So what's happening now is that most of these large companies, whether it is GE or whether it is something else, is getting attacked by these small little startups, and they don't know how they're going to defend themselves because they cannot fight a swarm of bees. But these guys are coming, these are the disruptors, these are the guys that are changing everything. A great example, TransferWise. I think the development team is in Ukraine for this one, that's what I heard. It's a company which is, it's a startup which is looking at moving money internationally at very little transaction fees. And the way they do it is basically it's a matchmaking service. So if there is a person in Kyiv that is trying to move money to London, let's say $100, they find somebody in London who's trying to move $100 back to Kyiv. And if that happens, the money does not ever leave the country. The money is basically like a barter. They just do the barter and they bypass all of the international processing fees that banks levy on you. This is an example of what I just said. This is a bee which is attacking banks. So one service at a time. These guys come in and then they disrupt how a traditional bank works. This is being built, by the way, with the same guys who built Skype. So these are not new entrepreneurs. These are highly successful people with a lot of money behind them, and they are going to come and change things dramatically. While all of this is true, existing businesses still have to keep their lights on. And you know that 90% of an IT budget goes in keeping its lights on. There's only 10% maybe money kept for innovation dollars. Even today, let me share this with you. The world is changing, like we said. Of the top 5 banks in the world, not even one is American. It used to be that the world revolved around America. The largest markets, the largest enterprises came from there. It is no longer true. The world's largest bank is ICBC Bank from China. The second is HSBC. And then the third is France's Crédit Agricole. These are the largest banks in the world. And let's take a look at what happened with ICBC. In 2013, ICBC faced an outage where the ATMs first stopped working. After the ATM stopped working, their online banking system went down for an hour, and then the problem just started to spread from end to end across the entire country. And when you look at what happened, it was because a database server hit 100% CPU utilization, and that happened by a simple act of upgrading DB2 from version 9 to version 10. Now imagine the CIO has to go into the board of directors and explain to them why something as simple as a software upgrade should bring the entire banking system down. This is the same CIO, which, by the way, the board of directors have said, you need to tell us how to use technology to make more money, to make our customers more happy. And if you're going to focus on those initiatives, which is because they are necessary, if we don't innovate there will be one of these bees that is going to come and they're going to offer that service in there. Then how can the CIO, who has to deal with these menial tasks, focus on the innovation dollars? Now this is 2013. You can say a lot has changed in the last few years, but not really. You know, in July, New York Stock Exchange went down, right? New York Stock Exchange, there was no trading for 4 hours. IDG looked into the cause, and you know what the cause was? The exchange traced the problems back to an update applied to a single system on Tuesday evening. A simple update brought the entire trading platform of one of the largest stock exchanges in the world down. The old ways in which you manage IT, which is you needed systems management, business service management, monitoring, security, all of those IT service management, all of those things are still important, but they are not enough for you to be able to run digital services and offer those kind of services to the customers. The scale is not even comparable. Like in the Sanofi case, instead of 10,000 customers, you have 1 million customers. Most of the times, these digital services are not restricted to a certain locale. Uber is not a US-based taxi company. It's everywhere in the world where it is permitted to operate, it operates. When you are talking about that kind of scale, just having this is not enough. A new approach is needed. And this new approach is about real-time orchestration, which looks at the best way to offer that service. A real-time orchestration engine could, for example, detect that there is a load in your system and automatically spin off a virtual machine or maybe a container like Docker with an app, serve the purpose for a few minutes and then go away when that load goes away. It's policy-driven, so which means that there is no human intervention in order for you to bring up these systems and for you to be able to scale. There is no human intervention, otherwise it's going to slow things down. It has to be automated. It has to be secure. There is, the truth of the matter right now is that I don't think anybody is safe. Every single company in the world is going to get hacked. Every single one. Some of them are public spectacles like the Ashley Madison case. Them getting hacked is not just about them going and getting some ransom, but there are people that committed suicide who were on that list. This is real. I was, about a month back, I was at a CEO strategy roundtable in India with some of the top CEOs in India, and we had Ernst & Young come and play some games with us. And one of the games that they played with us was about security. And the game started with each of the CEOs getting a SMS that says, your system's been hacked, we own you. And it starts from there and escalates, because now as a CEO, what are you going to do? Because you have to answer to the board of directors. They're asking for ransom, which is not a good thing, and it's definitely illegal, so you cannot pay them. You have to answer to your customers because maybe their data is going to get violated. What are the things that you will do? And at the end of that game, they told us a very scary fact. They said, every Friday, there is at least one retail company in India, online, that gets hacked, and they ask for $2 million in ransom money. And some of them pay because they have no choice. So security is way more critical today because of the innumerable loopholes that you have. You're putting your apps on devices, you're putting them on watches, you're putting them on Fitbits, you're putting them all sorts of places where all of that infrastructure may not be secure. Security cannot be an afterthought. It has to be intuitive. The customers that are using your services right now, even if it is an enterprise customer, is used to a very different level of service on the consumer apps that they use. They want a Facebook-like experience. They want an Uber-like experience. They want an Airbnb-like experience. They do not want to fill forms. They want to use the capabilities that are native to a device to be able to increase productivity. These systems have to be intuitive. Nobody wants to wait in queue for anybody, nobody wants to make a call to anybody, and they have to be insanely open. Insanely open, because the new world is about integrated services. Back in 1996, we used to call these things application syndication, and today when you look at it, you're starting to see that a service is made up of multiple different services, which all of them are coming in from different providers. I'll tell you another story. Another startup in India, a company called Nolarity that I have been using. They basically allow you to set up a call center in 5 minutes flat. Call center in 5 minutes flat. Most times when you have a call center, you also have a ticketing system in the back. And the integration between the ticketing system and the call center was as simple as taking an API from here and copying it and pasting it here, and taking an API from here and copying and pasting from here, and that's it, you're done. You have integrated two systems with just two API calls from both ends. It's got to be that simple. It's got to be that simple. What companies need is innovation IT, because if they are not going to do digital services, do you have online banking in Ukraine? How big of a decision is it for you if there was a choice between a bank that gives you online banking and a bank that does not? Would you even consider the bank that does not give you online banking? Most likely not. And then in online services, the ones that give you the best services are the ones you will most likely take. So for example, in the US, there are many banks that offer check processing services from your mobile devices. You can just take a picture of your check and the check clears in the back end. Right? That is a very convenient thing for somebody that travels quite a bit. So people are now starting to say that we want to pick those kinds of companies to work with, or those kinds of service providers where it's easy for me to interface with them. That is innovation IT. But innovation IT falls flat without having a strong industrial backend. The same service that I talked about, the check processing thing in the US, is very common. Most banks offer it. But there was a bank in Australia that decided they were going to do the same thing. They didn't think through it. When they launched the service, sounds like a simple thing, right? You just take a picture of the check, use some OCR, you get all your routing numbers, get your account numbers, and then you're done. But what they didn't realize is that the behavior of the person could bring down their banking system. They didn't realize that, and that happened. So when they launched the check processing service, it brought down their entire banking system, simply because what the user now started to do is that you take a picture of the check, and then instantly he will start querying the bank. Is the money deposited? Is the money deposited? Is the money deposited? And the banking systems are not used to that many queries hitting them at the same time. Banking system went down. This innovation IT is not going to succeed without a very strong industrial IT backend. For that matter, way more industrial than anything you have imagined before. Different analysts call it different thing. Gartner calls this bimodal IT, but their message is the same. It's got to be industrial and innovative. Today's enterprises are going to be digital enterprises. And digital enterprise is it's basically a mindset that says, we will go digital service first. And that means a service that is delivered to your mobile phone, to your Apple Watch, or whatever whatever is the technology of the day that you're going to use for you to interface with that particular company's service. Many companies are starting to do that, but if they don't do it right, then they end up in that situation like the Australian bank. The digital enterprise IT has to make sure that the systems are policy aware, so you don't have human intervention, highly automated, role driven. It's got to be highly personalized. It's got to be location aware, context aware, because people do not want to fill forms. You have to build intelligence based on all the things that are possible. If I'm using a service on a mobile device, for example, if I work out of my India office and I'm traveling to my Ukraine office, and I'm now trying to say I need a service from IT, all the services may not be possible in Ukraine that I might have in India. But I don't need to tell my phone that, because if my system knows where I am, it knows which office I'm in, it knows what capabilities are available in that office. So I only get a catalog of those services that are provided in that location. You have got to use the intelligence of all of those things in order to make sure that your services are going to be delivered flawlessly. The infrastructure has to become very, very strong, and the other thing that has to become really strong is the DevOps. Because in the past, it was okay for people to say that it takes 3 months for you to release something. In the real past, it was even worse. It used to take 12 months to 18 months for you to release anything. Now, how often do apps get updated on your phone? How often? Every day. Some apps are updating every week, every other week. The same behavior is expected out of enterprise apps. So even if you work for the IT organization of a customer, and your customer is an internal customer, the expectations are identical. Your infrastructure, your DevOps processes, all of those things have to match exactly what they are used to on the consumer side. This is the architecture, the blueprint. You need an intuitive experience. You need orchestration and analytics and policy in the middle, so a lot of things can be automated. And then you need digital service management, because you need to make sure that the service is delivered and is running flawlessly. You need digital infrastructure optimization. I'll tell you a very interesting stat. Right from the time I think I got into this profession, I've heard mainframes are going to die. I've heard that for years now. But you know what is happening? The mainframe's not dying. The mainframe traffic is up 40%. Why? Because even though the service is being delivered on the mobile, that transaction ends up on the mainframe. And just because it is easy to consume a service, you consume a lot more of it. It's exactly the same example as querying your bank account after depositing a check. If I want to move money from one account to another, if I have to take half the day off from work to go to a bank to do that transaction, I'm not going to do it. But if I can move it right from my mobile, I'm going to move money as many times in a day as I like. And all of those things are resulting in that. Now, IBM is a very sharp company. The way they charge for mainframe dollars is through something called MLC. There is an MLC fee, which is a mainframe license charge. And those charges are variable. Because of your mainframe transactions up 40%, a lot of the mainframe costs are going off the roof for a lot of enterprises. And so we've been doing a lot of stuff over there where we can bring down a lot of this cost by moving workloads around based on the utilization of a particular mainframe. But this becomes really important. Infrastructure is not just distributed systems, infrastructure is also mainframes. Digital enterprise automation, you've got to automate. When you're moving from a small set of users to a very large set of users, a small set of data to a very large set of data, you cannot rely on human beings to be able to do that. As in the case of Sanofi, if The Sanofi CIO's customer base was 10,000 users. When he went off with the appliance and had 100,000 or a million users, the CIO's budget did not increase by 10 times. For that matter, the CIO's budget decreased by maybe 5%, and it decreases every year because most businesses are transforming and they need innovation dollars. And that innovation dollars always comes from cost centers. IT is a cost center. And a lot of times they are the ones funding that development. So they got to handle scale, and you cannot do that without automation. And then enterprise assurance, which is really monitoring. We are at a point in time now where the software agents on your devices are about as effective as the human monitors in a social network. And there's a great example of a company, it's one of my favorite companies, it got acquired by Google, a company called Waze. Have you heard of it? W-A-Z-E, Waze? Yeah? Are there many Wazers in the room? One. Okay. So you need critical mass for this thing to work. But what Waze does is it uses a social network's intelligence on routes to be able to tell you the best route to go from point A to point B. So for example, if I'm going from point A to point B and I know that that route takes 20 minutes, but if it took me 22 minutes, it knows that there is a delay on that route. And if there is a person who's just about entered A to go to B, and there is an alternate route available which takes him in 21 minutes, then the software is automatically going to divert him to go through there. Now you've seen this in Google. Do you use Google Maps here? Do you see the new thing that comes? 2 minutes slower, 1 minute faster. Have you seen that new feature? Waze. That's Waze. Their information is not just coming in from the traffic control systems. The information is coming in real time from human monitors who are taking the time to say, hey, I'm stuck because there is an accident. I'm stuck because there is a cop over here who's just pulled somebody over, whatever that might be. The intelligence is coming from humans, and when the social network is that powerful, then you can, then your software can become really intelligent. Now the same thing applies in enterprise. I'll give you an example of a bank. Let's assume that there is a bank that is giving you this check deposit service on your mobile phone. And you find that there is a customer who's trying to take an image of a check and it's just not going through. Now anything can be wrong. It's the model of the phone, the OS of the phone. It's coming in through 3G, 2G, Wi-Fi. You don't know that. It's a different carrier. And so multiple parameters that could cause it. But if you start to notice a pattern, so this is a human monitor. The guy's trying to put a check in, and then he says, this is not working for me. So he hits a button that says, I'm having a problem. Once you get 5 people in that region giving you that problem, you can now start to send out a broadcast to everybody else that has the same profile, with the same phone, the same carrier, the same location, and so on and so forth, saying, hey, we might be experiencing an outage on a deposit service. If you're planning to deposit a check, please hold off on it. You've gone now from reactive, a terrible customer experience, because he expects that when he's trying to deposit a check, it's going to get deposited, to a proactive thing where you're saying, if you're trying to do this, just don't do it for now. Wait, we'll let you know when this is done. A human monitor in the social network, as powerful as software monitors, works in the enterprise. And then we talked a lot about security and open integration. And of course, a lot of this is going to run on cloud and on mobile devices and on using self-service. Digital enterprise automation. If you really get up to automation, as you know, automation is a journey. If you can actually get up to automating a lot of the mundane tasks and some of the more complicated ones, you could easily get up to 80% faster. This has become even more critical now on the DevOps side, because you just don't have the luxury to say, I'm going to take my code from dev to QA to pre-production to UAT and then off into production, and that whole cycle is going to take 8 weeks or 12 weeks. You don't have 12 weeks. You got to just automate that whole thing much, much faster. Digital enterprise assurance, if you're starting to really do proactive monitoring versus reactive, and have some great sets of tools that allow you to monitor or do root cause analysis faster, you could get some serious benefits. At least on our BMC software, customers have reported when they use our products that they're getting up to 10 times faster root cause analysis. They can fix problems much faster. Digital service management, which is about ensuring that the service is up and running at any point in time, and it is not going to bring any other services down, very critical. Infrastructure optimization, I've talked a lot about it. that mainframe charges are up by 20%, but PMC can help you bring it down. Transactions are up 40%. So I'm going to end this so that we have some time for QA after this. But we think that most enterprises are at crossroads right now. They are going to go right or they're going to go left. The leaderboard is going to get shaken up. The guys who are on top of that leaderboard are going to fall maybe, and some of the new guys are going to move up. Technology disruption is a great leveler. It levels the playing field for everybody, new entrants as well as old ones. The old ones have to be very paranoid to make sure, but their situation is not easy because they are exactly like that elephant that is getting attacked by a swarm of bees. It's not easy for them. But the CIOs that will adopt the new digital enterprise management products will end up being this. I've actually met CIOs who call themselves CI30. It stands for Chief Information, Intelligence and Innovation Officer. And then there are those CIOs who are not going to do that, and then their CIO will be career is over. So with that, I'm going to end the presentation and open it up for questions.
Thank you. A nice presentation. All right, people, let's ask questions. Let's ignite the discussion.
Questions?
I have a question about the Uber, it's a great service. So my question is, it's not allowed in all countries. And personally, I think that Uber is one of the most innovative thing in our world to get. So why do people don't take that innovation? Why do they fight against it, in your opinion?
Why do they fight against innovation?
Right.
Because it threatens a lot of people's jobs. I'll tell you, this is just my personal opinion, but while this stuff is happening, people are also going to lose their jobs. And we will head towards a civil unrest, right? Because there will be people who have security in their jobs today and those are going to go away. The biggest reason Uber is facing issues is because all the labor unions and taxis are getting disintermediated. And the law is different for Uber versus for taxis. Taxis are heavily regulated, the government charges a lot of fees, they impose on what the driver needs to do, from health checks to security checks to all sorts of things. None of those are really, in some countries they're starting to insist that Uber does the same. Because in a way, Uber is really not a taxi service because they don't own any cars, right? And even the guys who drive the cars are really not drivers of taxis because it's like a carpooling service, except you pay the guy who's driving the car for the service you offer. So they take it very, in a different way. But from a consumer perspective, the demand is very, very high. Most people will now use Uber over a regular taxi service, including me. For that matter, in the last couple of years that I've gone to the US, I travel to the US very often on business, I have not rented a car. I only use Uber. And I meet some of the most interesting people, by the way, who are Uber drivers. I'll tell you a very funny one. So I was on a vacation with my family and we were going to the airport. I called an Uber. The guy who showed up to pick me is ex-CFO of Fidelity Investments. Do you know Fidelity? Fidelity is a very large financial services company. One of the largest companies in the world. It's privately held, family held, but it's one of the largest financial services company in the world. This guy was a CFO of 150 Fidelity businesses, and he had just retired. And he was now going to become a venture capitalist. He was raising a fund of about $400 million, and in the meantime, while the money was coming in, he was driving Uber. I met another really interesting person. I was in Houston, I did called for Uber. A BMW came and picked me up. It was a woman driver. And I got talking to her. She is a lawyer and had just gotten laid off, and she decided that she wasn't going to find a job in a hurry. She was going to wait for the perfect job, and because of Uber, she didn't have to hurry into it because Uber was making good money for her. Uber drivers make on average between $7,000 to $10,000 a month in the US. It's so, it's just changing the world. So on the consumer side, on the driver side, adoption is huge. On the taxi side, the union, these are the people that are getting threatened because they won't have any jobs anymore. Those are the people that are revolting.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hello, thank you for very good presentation. I'm here.
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm
Can you
here.
put up your hand? Ah, there you are. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm here. But you mostly talked about trends what happen right now. But do you have any vision what will happen in 3 or 5 years ahead, and what will be trend?
It is really, really difficult to say what will happen 3 to 5 years from now. Because, 5 years back, I couldn't have forecasted what is happening now would have happened. So it's really difficult to, but what are the interesting trends? Internet of Things and connected devices. Your homes are going to change because all the devices are going to connect and talk to each other. The business models are going to change. Here is an interesting one, guys. You may have heard about this one, but a lot of companies don't want to get their cash stuck in large capital intensive projects. And so there's always, they want OPEX over CAPEX, right? They want operating expenses and not block their capital. So a lot of companies are starting to say that, hey, we're not going to sell you anything. We're only going to lease you everything. So you've heard of SaaS, software as a service, pay as you go. The same model is coming into the other manufacturing world too. So for example, Whirlpool is seriously thinking about not selling washing machines anymore. If you want a washing machine, what you get is a laundry service. They will install the washing machine in your house. And based on the number of washes, they will send you a bill at the end of every month. The machine will be monitored by Whirlpool because it's going to be lots of sensors in there that will make sure that the performance of the machine is optimal, and all the maintenance will be done on schedule. The guy just shows up, he takes care of the machine and goes away. It'll be highly energy efficient because they will make sure that the machines are running to be very energy efficient. But they will not sell you the washing machine. They will only send you a bill for the number of times that you have used the washing machine. It doesn't stop over there. GE engines, they make jet engines, is doing the same. They are putting sensors into the turbines, into the jet turbines, and based on the number of spins of the turbine, they will send a bill to the company that operates the firm. They will not sell you jet engines anymore. They will sell you a service for the jet engine, and they take responsibility for maintaining the engines and doing everything. So the world as we know now is going to change significantly, but Internet of Things, sensors, connected devices, Fitbits, wearable devices, 3D printing is going to be big. Let me see. Clothes, sensor-based clothes or intelligent clothing is going to be big. Alternate energy is going to be big. And all of these, so there are, I can't go through the full list right now, but there are about 12 disruptive technologies in play right now. We only talk about one. When we talk about it, we talk about mobile devices and services. There are 12 disruptive technologies in play right now. And they are serious disruptions. I'll give you an example. 3D printing sounds really simple. But when you don't need to move materials anymore because you can print on demand, supply chain gets redefined. I don't have to move materials anymore. I don't need all those transportation. I don't need those trucks. For that matter, they have installed a 3D printer in the space station, and now they just print. They don't have to send rockets up with supplies anymore. They just print whatever it is that they need. If I look at other simple things, autonomous cars, self-driving cars. When you have a lot of self-driving cars, I'm sure US will be the first market because there's a lot of infrastructure available for this to happen. When you have a lot of self-driving cars do not get into accidents. And because they don't get into accidents, you don't need insurance. So insurance companies right now are worried that in the next decade or so, first there were certain industries that adopted technology first, like banking. They were always the leaders. Now we find all industries are adopting technology in different areas. So self-driving cars, for example, the first adopters of that is the mining industry. Because now they can send the cars down without putting the lives of the drivers at risk. Mining and oil, energy, all of these are really old companies, but they are the ones who are basically adopting a lot of these kinds of technology. So I just went through a couple of things that will happen, but it'll be an interesting thing to watch. Other questions? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.